Hey, Bo here. I got a story for you. I was just thinking about the time that Colonel Bruce Hampton, rest in peace, a famous, obscure Southern blues musician, read my mind the very first time I met him. So here's the story. So, Colonel Bruce Hampton, he's an obscure blues, avant-garde, Americana, Southern rocker. Some of you know him, and if you know him, you love him. If you don't know of him, you're confused. You might have seen him in Billy Bob Thornton's Sling Blade movie. Billy Bob Thornton wrote a very important line or role for Colonel Bruce. He was the heavyweight Southern lead singer of the band. But that's a whole nother thing. But here's a picture of him. Here's a picture of me and Colonel Bruce. There's Colonel Bruce. There's me. So, he's a Southern blues musician who, kind of like Frank Zappa, is really weird but sober. No cigarettes, no wine that I know of, and I think that's the case. I think that he was known as being weird but sober. So, I had seen him while growing up in the South. I had seen him play all sorts of festivals down in Auburn and Birmingham and Atlanta and Memphis and Montevallo, Montgomery, you name it. I'd see Colonel Bruce Hampton in the Aquarium Rescue Unit, Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Fiji Mariners, Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Code Talkers. So, really interesting older guy, didn't look like a rock star, didn't act like a rock star. So, back in 2001-ish, there was something called a jam cruise, and it was a rock and roll cruise that went out into the Caribbean, international waters, no rules, and 13 or so jam rock bands or rock bands played. Les Claypool of Primus played with the Flying Frog Brigade. Galactic from New Orleans, Michael Franti from San Francisco, you name it. It was a great cruise, and Colonel Bruce and the Code Talkers. So, I had seen Colonel Bruce in person a number of occasions, but I'd never met him in person. He was much older than me. He was a rock star. I wasn't going to go up and introduce myself to him. But on the jam cruise, the idea was that you got to go meet the bands if you were interested. If you were a fan, there were opportunities to meet the musicians that you would like to on this sort of all-inclusive, no boundaries sort of a jam cruise. Perfect for someone like me, right? So, I wind up on the cruise, dream vacation, and I wound up one afternoon during the Michael Franti show. Michael Franti's playing on one level of the cruise ship, and I'm sitting up on another balcony level, kind of looking out. And I look over, and there's the senior statesman, Colonel Bruce Hampton, probably 65-ish years old at this point. Speaking of, it's the anniversary of the week that he died. He would have been 73 this week, I think. That's a whole nother story about him dying on stage at the end of a 4-hour tribute concert or concert in honor of him held by Billy Bob Thornton. That's a whole nother story. Okay, back to the jam cruise where I am with Colonel Bruce. I look over and Colonel Bruce is sitting on a table right beside me, just out in the sunshine, eating his lunch. And this was the time before smartphones and all that. Just regular phone cameras, And so I've got a camera with me, and I turn to this lady who's sitting beside me, and I said, "Hey, that's Colonel Bruce right there. I've been a huge fan of his for years and years. Will you take my picture if he agrees when I go over there?" And she says, "Yes, no problem. What's your name?" I said, I'm Bo. Let's go over there. So we go over there, and I say, "Hey, Colonel Bruce." And he says, "Yes, boy." And I said, "I hate to interrupt you, but I've been a big fan for years and years. I'd love to have my picture taken with you." And he says, "No problem." And he stands up and he goes to put his arm around me. And I said, "You know what? This is kind of nice, but right here in the middle of this little restaurant, this little cafe, let's go over and stand right by the railing so that we'll kind of look like we're on our honeymoon together. And he says, all right, boy. So he walks over there with me. He puts his arm around me. He shakes my hand. The lady takes our picture. She takes one or two. It didn't take 30 seconds from beginning to end. And I turned to him and I said, sir, it was a real pleasure meeting you. And he says, boy, the pleasure's all mine. And I said, no, the pleasure's mine, sir. I'm a big fan of yours. I used to see you kind of on the Chitlin circuit, you know, down south. I used to see you, you know, in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee. And he says, well, boy, I appreciate it. I said, nice meeting you. He says, nice meeting you. And then he grabs my hand, and he doesn't let go of my hand, and he pulls me close, and he looks me right in the eye, and he says, boy, you are an Aries. Your birthday is March 28th, possibly April 2nd, but I believe, and I'm here to tell you, it's March 28th. Well, my birthday is March 28th. My birthday is March 28th. So I turn around and I look at the crowd around me and the people around me, because they're watching us. You know, they see me having my picture taken with Colonel Bruce, one of the stars there. And I'm looking to see if anyone there knows me and if anyone there can be saying, March 28th. It's March 28th. And I look around, I'm looking at people, and there's no one there that knows me. I'm on a cruise in the middle of the Caribbean Ocean. And I turned back and I looked to him and I said, what are you talking about? And he says, it's obvious, boy, you are an Aries. And I said, my birthday is March 28th. And he says, I know. And he turns around and he walks back out into the crowd and goes and sits down at his table and finishes his whatever he was drinking, his ginger ale and his shrimp cocktail. So, one of my favorite musicians for nearly 20 years told me the day I was born within 30 minutes of meeting him. I don't believe in stuff like that, but it happened to me. So, I went to my cabin room, I sat down on the floor in my teeny little cabin of that cruise ship, and I thought to myself, I don't know what to believe anymore. I used to only believe in things that I could like see and feel and test, but now I think I have to believe in things that I don't necessarily understand. Thank you, Colonel Bruce Hampton. Rest in peace, you weird rock and roll man. And if you've not listened to him, look up Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Aquarium Rescue Unit. You will thank me. Goodness gracious. I don't know what to believe anymore.